Salutations, everyone. I'm here to bring you, well, first off, you see a little bit of Ratchet and Clank gameplay. I've been playing this game a hell of a lot recently, and I just got to platinum a couple days ago. But I'm not here to talk about Ratchet and Clank. I'm sure any of you followed me on social media know I've talked about that game enough. What I want to talk about is this new Beyoncé album, Lemonade. Now, she surprise dropped it, released it on Tidal over the weekend, but then it, got out to places where you can actually purchase it, Amazon and iTunes, all that good stuff. And I've been listening to it. It is something else. See, I've been a Beyonce fan for a long time. Rap music is my main love, but I do like a good bit of pop music as well. I'm not too heavy in there, but a couple artists, I like Beyonce, like Ariana Grande, and I like one or two others. And Beyonce's actually been intriguing me more and more recently. And by recently, I mean her last few albums. I really liked 4. I like how a lot of those felt like really epic ballads and such. And then I really like her self-titled album, which is the last album she put out. That was really... I don't know. I don't know if there's any words to describe it. I wanted to say funky, but I'm like, that doesn't really encapsulate how I felt about that album. But it just had some good sounds on there, and it seemed like she was experimenting a little bit more and becoming a little less generic, because let's face it, a lot of pop music, they all sound the same in a lot of cases. So it was nice to see her doing some things to change it up a little bit. And in Lemonade, the album she just put out now, this is on a whole nother level than all the other albums she's put out. Or at least all the ones that I can recall from my memory listening to. She is completely, first off, she's definitely doing a whole lot more different sounds in this album. She has a whole bunch of, each track on here just has a different sound from all the other tracks on the album. She has a track on here that involves some country vibes. She has, a banger track or two on here. She has a song called Freedom, which might as well be the new Black Lives Matter anthem. You'll probably start hearing a lot of people chanting the chorus to that one in marches upcoming. But here, let's just go through the track list and do it one by one. The first track, Pray You Catch Me. This track is kind of a little bit more mellow. Reminds me of the I Am Sasha Fierce /4 vibes. It's very mellow, and it's kind of just, I think it's kind of hinting at there's a little bit of turmoil in her relationship. And by her relationship, I'm sure everyone in the world knows she's married to Jay-Z. So there's some type of dishonesty going on. Not quite sure what's going up or what's going on. And it seems like by the end of that song, she finds out there's maybe another woman. And this song is, it's not my favorite track. I don't want to say I dislike the track, but it's just not as strong compared to some of these other tracks on the album. It seems very much inspired by older Beyonce sounds. So as much as I accept the song, and I won't necessarily skip it every time it's on, I prefer to go to some tracks that just invigorate me a little bit more. Tracks like the second track, and that one is Hold Up. Now, Hold Up, I really enjoy this track. Even though it is somewhat mellow, it does have a little bit more of an upbeat vibe. It kind of reminds me of a little reggae tune almost. I don't know if that's necessarily the genre they were going for, but that's the vibe I'm getting from it. And it's basically talking about how, hold up, she don't love you like I don't love you. She being the other woman, Beyonce referring to herself, saying that, no matter what this other girl's talking about, I was here first. I am your number one. And it kind of seems like she's almost, I don't want to say begging, because that seems a little bit, downplaying her role, but, kind of just reaching out and saying, oh, here's your pros and cons, and I love you this much, and she might say she loves you that much. So I really like the sound of it, though. It's very catchy, very just get you a little rocking side to side in your chair and all that. I really like that track. And it's kind of a stark contrast to the next track. While Hold Up was really mellow and whatnot, and I can just get around and get my little vibes in, Don't Hurt Yourself. That track is very, very hard hitting. It's basically a rock track, and despite me not really being a fan of rock at all, no offense to those who like it, I'm just, I'm a hip-hop guy first and foremost, and R&B, and then a little pop. But yeah, Don't Hurt Yourself, it has Jack White on there, and it just goes real hard, and you can hear an angry Beyonce in this track, and she is just firing on all cylinders. She's using every word in the book, which I'm not used to Beyonce saying. I mean, even after her last album where she was getting a little bit more edgy, this is just like, hopping on the next dick and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. Beyonce, oh my God. You were singing about halos a couple years ago. What happened? But yeah, I still love this track, despite her being a little bit more rougher on this track, more hard edge. I'm still loving that track, and I am reciting that over and over again. I got a coworker who's listening to the album too, and we go back and forth like, if you love me, don't hurt yourself, and all this stuff. That song's really catchy as well, even if it is, one of the harder tracks on the album. And then we transition to the fourth track, which is Sorry. Sorry is kind of, first off, I do like the track. The track does sound nice to me, and whenever it comes on, I do not skip it because I enjoy it. I actually look forward to that song on the album. But when I think about it, it is kind of, the beat kind of just seems to continue, and even when like the chorus starts, the beat doesn't change enough to make you think it's the chorus, so you only know it's the chorus when she starts saying the title of the song, I ain't sorry, nigga, hell no. And I do like the track. It's talking about how, how he's talking about and Don't Hurt Yourself. She was talking about how, oh, you're gonna hurt me. Well, since we're in a relationship, that's gonna hurt both of us, so you're really just playing yourself, DJ Khaled style. You played yourself. Anyway, Sorry is basically going in a different direction and saying that, she came off real aggressive in the Don't Hurt Yourself part, and she's not sorry for all that aggression. I mean, it's definitely justified. If you're gonna treat her like this in the relationship, you should expect to get shot back at in the same velocity. And I really just like this track, even though it does have that kind of little poppy vibe, or I don't want to say poppy vibe. I feel like that's too general of a description, but it does have that little floaty vibe where I can get my vibes to it. It's a little bit harder than Hold Up was, but it still gives me that similar feeling. And then we transfer onto that to 6 Inch featuring The Weeknd. Now, this track, I gotta be honest, the first time I heard this track, I was not really feeling it. It reminded me of something it clearly sounded like a track that was made for radio, with the heavy bass and the evoking stripper vibes and everything. And even though the actual song is actually kind of noble in its message, talking about how you got to stack your paper rather than, spending it on whatever you want, impulse buys and such, it just feels like a half-baked track. And even The Weeknd being on it, I mean, I don't hate The Weeknd, I don't love The Weeknd. The Weeknd's just The Weeknd. But him on it, I felt like he was very underutilized. He had like one verse and then he was just off the track forever. But the more I've been listening to 6 Inch, it's starting to grow on me, because it is pretty catchy, especially that end part where she's talking about, grinding from Monday to Friday and Friday to Monday. I think I might end up coming around on that track. You might have to give me a couple dozen more listens, because I've listened to this album at least 20 times through since it released. So, I'm diving into this thing deep. But yeah, since it's just starting to grow on me, but I don't want to say anything definitive yet. But I'll tell you one song that I definitely do love, even off of first listen, Daddy Lessons, which is the next track. Now, Daddy Lessons, this is the one where I was talking about country vibes earlier. This song sounds a whole lot like a country song. In fact, when I first heard the song, the first person I thought of was Yellow Wolf. Last year he released Love Story, and that whole entire album had very heavy country vibes, even though it was more or less a rap album. Or it was a rap album mostly, we'll say. But anyway, Daddy Lessons really invokes that vibe to me. And Beyonce, she knocks it out of the park vocally, so hearing her on, little banjo in the background sounds like she's at a local bar or a pub or something. It really sets the background noises, sets the mood and the ambiance, and it makes you want to get up there and get on the dance floor and do your two-step to it. And it just sounds real pleasant. It's not even coming off hard or anything. It's just like, oh, yeah, it sounds like a folk tale or something. I don't know quite how to explain it adequately, but it just sounds really pleasant. It's just heartwarming when I hear it. And so, love that track, and I hope she keeps doing stuff similar to that, and it matches none of these other tracks on these albums, and really nothing in her previous catalog also. So really appreciate that track. And right after that, we have Love Drought. Love Drought is kind of this is another song similar to 6 Inch, where 6 Inch was just a banger. It seemed like a little too, I don't want to use this word, I know this might be controversial, but it seemed a little too commercial. But Love Drought just seems a little bit too just artsy for me. It just seems like far out. The beat is kind of with a little wavy, space sounding instrumental. It does sound pretty good, but it's just a little weird. It's just not, it doesn't sound like it's set up in a typical verse chorus structure, which is fine. I love songs who don't abide by that structure, but it just seems a little bit unfocused for me. So I didn't really love that track. Once again, I accept it, and half the time when it's on, I'll just listen to it because I like the story of the album, because all these tracks do tell a story at the end of it. But it's just a little bit too lackluster for me personally, so half the time I skip it. But it's kind of good because I go on to the next track, which is Sandcastles. Now Sandcastles is just a basic, just piano and voice. It's one of those tracks, but it is a very brilliant track when it comes to that. Sandcastles, just, you hear Beyonce's voice, and we all know Beyonce can knock it out of the park vocally, so it's just her just putting out her emotions about her relationship and about this apparent woman that Jay-Z, we assume, has been out with, and just her emotions. You can even hear her like almost crying in the middle of this track, where she's talking about, bitch, I scratched out your name and your face, and then she starts crying and stuff. It's just really powerful. Kind of just, it just gets me in the soft spot in the middle, right there next to my sternum. It's a really good song. It's a really emotional song, and I probably should steer clear of that if I'm ever in a breakup ever. But we got another song after that. Well, I don't want to really call this a song. It's like kind of an interlude type track. You got James Blake on it, Forward. It's okay. It's so short that it really doesn't bother me it being on the track. It is kind of leading into the next couple tracks where they do get a little bit more uplifting and such. But it seems like it has a purpose. I don't want to say it was unnecessary, but it's just a minute. It's like a minute and 20 seconds or so. And it just seems very just strange. Like it could have easily been added to the end of Sandcastles, because Sandcastles was nothing but a little bit more than 3 minutes. So you just put those together and you got a little under 5 minutes of a song. Because I feel like Forward just didn't make too much sense as just its own interlude track. But hey, I'm not offended by it. James Blake sounds very nice on it, and Beyonce sounds nice with him, even though she's like more of a background in that song. But it does lead into my favorite song on there. I'm sure you heard my phone in the background. We're gonna ignore that. This leads to my favorite song on this whole freaking album, and that is Freedom. Freedom is such a great track. Jesus Christ. Now, I'm sure you guys know it. I got at least one video on my channel already talking about how much I love that Kendrick Lamar's last album, or I guess his last album, because he recently released Untitled Unmastered earlier this year. But last year, To Pimp a Butterfly is one of my favorite albums of all time. Like, I'm comfortable saying that at this point. And so his appearance on this track, Freedom, near the end, just, really excited me. He's coming off lyrically great, and he's having some clever lines on there along with his socially aware commentary and stuff. He comes correct on the track, but Beyonce on this track by herself just comes off really strong, really emotional, almost like if you go to a black church and they get into one of them songs and you get the woman who like actually can sing, like they have the choir full of people who all get up there and think they can sing, but then you get the one girl who's like, oh man, this is like what I do. It sounds like that. It is soul firing. It just lights you up inside. It is such a fantastic track. And similar to All Right on To Pimp a Butterfly, I feel like this is going to be, like I said, this is going to be that Black Lives Matter. People are going to be marching in the streets chanting this song. This song is so good, and I just feel so good about this song. I've listened to this song. I've listened to this song more times than I've listened to the entire album as a whole. Like I've said earlier, I probably listened to the album as a whole about 20 times through. I've heard this song about 60 times just on loop. It's just a good feeling to have within. So I gotta love that track. And then that leads into what I consider the end of the story, All Night. Kind of her, accepting the problems in the relationship, but not wanting to break it. There's still something worth salvaging there. So she's gonna get back with what we assume is Jay-Z, and then they'll come back together and they'll just have a happy life, even though they still got to build trust and they still got to rebuild some of the building blocks that have been crumbled in this whole affair, quite literally. And the song is pretty upbeat. I do like it. At first I didn't quite like it. It seemed a little bit too just corny, for a lack of a better word, but then it kind of, the more I listened to it, it kind of invoked that 4 vibe of like those epic ballads and such. So I really like All Night, and that's a good song to end up the album. And the ending of that song where she's like, "Oh, come back, my love," it's just, it's kind of heartwarming as well. Doesn't set a fire under your soul like Freedom did, but hey, can't ask for too much. And then we have the ending song, Formation, which I consider to be like, if this whole album is a story, this is the credits song. Formation, we've heard this song a couple months back. It's still really catchy. It still has that interesting like twang in the background that it begins the song with, and I always like that because it's kind of just, it's a little weird, it's a little off, and it's still catchy. It's the same song that you've heard a couple months ago, so I don't have too much to say about that other than it's pretty good. When it first came out originally, I was like, okay, this is a song, this is a Beyonce song, and I listened to it for a few days or weeks, and I'm like, okay, this is fine. But in context of the rest of the album, it kind of gives new life to the track, and I do enjoy the track slightly more. So yeah, that's what I think of Lemonade. I love this album. It's definitely one of my favorite albums of the year. Even though Kendrick Lamar put out an album this year, it was still kind of like a B-side to Pimp a Butterfly, so I hesitate to be like, oh, that's my favorite album. And then on top of that, Royce da 5'9" put out a new album, and I'm loving that. King Crooked put out another album. It was actually a joint album with Static Selecta, so go check that one out. Yeah, there are a lot of good albums coming out, and can't even forget not to Pimp a Butterfly, good God. The Life of Pablo by Kanye. I like that one quite a bit, despite, controversial opinions about Kanye himself. But yeah, there's lots of good music, and Lemonade is really good. Now, one thing I want to just mention before I end this commentary completely, I don't quite think that Lemonade is talking about Beyonce and Jay-Z's actual relationship. I just feel like they're kind of already somewhat private, so they're gonna put out all their dirty laundry in form of an album. Beautiful album still, but it's just I kind of don't trust them to just put all their stuff like that, and it's probably gonna make Jay-Z look like a fool to a certain degree, and I'm sure he don't want that, as you hear my phone go off in the background again. But yeah, I think this is, I don't want to say a publicity stunt, because I like to think that they don't want to take advantage of their fans and such. And then, Beyonce, she'll get on an interview and they're going to ask her about this if this stuff isn't true. So I feel like this is just a really good catalyst for what Beyonce already stands for. She's a very big feminist figure. She's a very good Black Pride figure and all that stuff. And I feel like what better way to show female pride and all that stuff than in a situation like this where you have infidelity and you're like, well, F you, I'm going over here if you ain't gonna treat me like the woman I deserve to be treated like. And I just felt like that's a good setup for that, so maybe that's why all these songs come out and they sound the way they do. But she could be pulling from her own life. I don't quite know, and I don't want to be the one to say whether or not it's true. All I know is the Beehive better stop running around to people on Twitter and shooting them down, because they are just bloodthirsty. Everybody wants to know who Becky with the good hair is, and I'm just like, let Becky be Becky. She's gotten hers, I'm sure. We don't need to come over there and just say mean things to her, because that really doesn't get anything done. Well, we are almost at 20 minutes in this commentary, so I'm going to start trying to wrap this up. And go ahead and get Lemonade where you can. You can get it on Amazon, iTunes. Hopefully it's on Google Play soon because I want to stream it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Lemonade. I will see you guys in a later video. Adios.